Ah, logic, the great equalizer, some would say. It doesn't care about our primitive emotions and only focuses on what's absolutely true, whether we like it or not. But as we humans are fallible creatures, so too do we create logical fallacies in an attempt to make our emotions sound like fact. And those not smart enough to pick out these fallacies might end up being convinced of something completely ridiculous just due to some fancy wording. So in an attempt to boost your critical thinking beyond that of a sheep, allow me to share some of these fallacies with you. Ad hominem. These can be summed up as, I don't have a real argument, so I'm just going to call you a jerkface instead. This happens when someone decides that the best way to discredit their opponent's argument is to attack their personality rather than actually addressing the substance of their claim. And unfortunately, this is a common occurrence these days whenever politics is brought into a conversation. If there is a bright side to it though, ad hominems can help you figure out really quick who you shouldn't hang out with. Anybody that wants to provide a convincing argument will typically bring up some evidence or a sample that supports their claim. But some end up making hasty generalizations, which is the fallacy of making a broad, sweeping claim based on a small, irrepresentative sample. An example of this would be having one red car that gets into an accident and then saying all red cars must be more prone to accidents. This type of hypergeneralization is the bread and butter of stereotypes and prejudice. And it's about as rooted in fact as saying that every person named Chad must be a frat bro with a trust fund. You know, some of the smartest people in the world realize that we're not perfect as human beings. However, others try to capitalize on that fact, and this is where the fallacy of tu quoque makes its appearance. The appeal to hypocrisy, as it's called, happens when someone tries to discredit an opponent's argument by pointing out that their opponent is not perfect either. Almost like a more subtle ad hominem. Imagine someone gets caught cheating on a test and then says, well, the teacher's a hypocrite because they use Wikipedia too. Nice deflect, but it doesn't make your actions any less wrong, pal. Here's one that I swear must be a personal favorite of certain politicians. The slippery slope fallacy happens when someone claims that a small step will inevitably lead to a chain reaction of bad news, often with little or no evidence at all to back it up. Imagine someone saying, well, if we let women wear leggings all the time, soon enough we'll all be running around naked. Buddy, what century do you think we live in? You know, questioning is something you should always do when you're looking to find the truth in things, but then there are some people that ask the loaded question. This is a fallacy that happens when someone asks a question that presumes something that hasn't been proven or accepted. It'd be kind of like asking a business owner, so when did you start embezzling money from the company? When there has been as of yet absolutely no evidence whatsoever that it actually happened. These are often used by people that want to try and put someone on the spot for some reason, with the question often being connected to some sort of agenda. Ah, the straw man fallacy. This happens when someone misrepresents their opponent's argument, often by oversimplifying or simply exaggerating it, and then attacking the distortion instead of the argument that was initially posited. A somewhat ridiculous example would be if someone said, I think we should have more bike lanes, and then someone replies, oh, you must hate cars and want to ban them forever. I don't know about you, but saying that someone hates cars when they say they want more bike lanes seems like a bit of a stretch. Hey, are you feeling enriched by this knowledge? Is your brain starting to think a little bit more critically now that you're learning something? That's good. If you want to give that critical thinking even more of a boost, consider subscribing to the channel. After all, even the smartest people never stop learning. Alright, back to the content. You know, appealing to nature is one of those ways that a lot of people will try to get one over on you. This fallacy happens when someone argues that something is good or right simply because it's naturally occurring, or that something else is bad because it's not naturally occurring. I mean, imagine someone saying that hemlock is good because it's natural, or that a C-section is bad because it's not a natural way to give birth. Or my personal favorite, anti-vaxxers. Look guys, there are lots of things in the natural world that are both good and bad. Same thing goes for human-driven advancements in technology and health. There's good and bad in all things. Burden of proof often comes up when talking about court cases, and rightfully so. But it becomes a fallacy when someone makes a claim and then challenges their opponent to prove them wrong, rather than providing evidence to support their own argument. It'd be like someone saying, "Penguins can fly. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, prove me wrong, Buster." Yeah, it doesn't quite work that way. If you're going to make an argument, you better have some evidence to back it up. Dilemmas are a common occurrence in just about anyone's life, but it does have a doppelganger, the false dilemma. These fallacies happen when someone presents a situation as having only two possible outcomes, when in reality there are more options available. A common example of such a dilemma would be that you can either have a successful career or a happy family life. Pick one. Hate to break it to you, but for better or for worse, life is generally not that black and white. Cause and effect is a daily occurrence, but effects do not always have the same cause. The fallacy of affirming the consequent happens when someone takes a true conditional statement, for example, if A then B, but then falsely concludes that if B is true, then A must also be true. If it's raining outside, then the ground will be wet, but the reverse is not always true. I mean, the ground could be wet because someone misfired a water balloon on a hot summer day. Sometimes a single word can have multiple meanings, and this is where the equivocation fallacy can come in. Essentially, it's using a word in more than one sense throughout an argument, often in a way to try and mislead someone or confuse them. Take a statement like this: feathers are light, and what is light cannot be dark. Therefore, feathers cannot be dark. Sounds like someone is trying to take away the color identity of just about every blackbird in existence. Or they're just someone that thinks they're slick, and in fact they're just an idiot. The next one frustrates just about every scientifically minded person ever. The false cause fallacy happens when someone assumes that just because two things happen together, one must be causing the other. Some of us might be playfully guilty of this, like the guy that thinks his lucky socks makes his favorite baseball team win every game. But obviously any scientifically minded person will say that's just a coincidence, because correlation does not always equal causation. Many of us have respect for authority figures, but obviously authorities are only experts in their chosen field. Unfortunately, some people use the appeal to authority fallacy to try and support their argument by citing an authority figure even if their expertise is not relevant to the topic at hand. Imagine someone saying that their dentist said that the color of all trees is red, and said person believes that because they think the dentist is an authority figure. Hate to break it to you, buddy, but trees have nothing to do with dentistry, so he's probably pulling your leg. That or he's a weirdo. Arguments are often uncomfortable, especially when they challenge our core beliefs. And there you have it, folks, a crash course on some of the most common logical fallacies out there. If we taught you anything with this video, I hope it's how to think critically, because we need more of that in the world. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. And be sure to share the video, because who knows, you might just help someone get out of a fallacy they've been living. See you next time.